Well, hello again everyone. I've just got a quick but essential check to do on the van before winter. Well, you might remember over the summer we've had one or two little incidents which has meant that we've lost a little bit of coolant, and I've topped it up a little bit, and there's been a bit out and a bit in here and there. So before the winter comes, I really want to test the concentration. So the engine's had a good old run, not recently, but I'm going to take it out a bit later. But the antifreeze in the little header tank here should be pretty representative of what's in the engine, because we haven't topped it up recently and it's done a good few miles since it was last faffed around with. So I've got my little tester here, and what you do, you just suck a bit up and basically see how many of these discs float. Now you really got to let it settle a bit to see what's going on, but yeah, that's kind of 2 discs floating. Now if you read that, that says that's good for minus 15 degrees C, which we're unlikely to get to, I would have thought. But just to be sure, I'm going to take a little bit out of this header tank and top it up with a bit more antifreeze. Now this big syringe is handy for things like gearbox oil changes, where it's difficult to get to the filler cap, but providing it's pretty clean and not too contaminated with oil, I can use it to suck a bit of the coolant out the top here without having to drain down the system or anything, just to top up with a little bit. Now I'm just going to put a bit of antifreeze in to replace the small amount of water I took out of there, just to increase the concentration. And remember, you have to use the right antifreeze, because this is an old girl. We're using the old-fashioned blue stuff. Right, so that's replaced the volume of water I took out. So let's pop the cap back on, and I'm going to go for a bit of a drive to get her up to temperature and mix that up a bit. She could do with a run out anyway, because she's not really moved since we got back from Yorkshire. So I'd like to give her a run every now and again if it's a long while between trips. There's a number of problems I've heard of people having when they leave their vans standing for too long without running. Things like the brakes seizing up are an obvious one, and also problems with the clutch, because these are a bit infamous for having a drain which drains into the gearbox. Ours doesn't anymore, and it's been cut off and diverted elsewhere. But in standard form, yeah, the drain from the front of the windscreen goes into a collecting box and into a little pipe, which I think I've shown on a previous video, and then it drains over the top of the gearbox. So if it sits for a long time, the clutch plates can get wet and seize together, which I guess could happen anyway through condensation and stuff. But yeah, people have had problems with their clutch after leaving the van sitting for a while. So yeah, I'm not going far. I can feel I've got the heater on, so I know when it heats up fully. The temperature gauge is still not working quite correctly as it should. I really do need to sort that out. But I've got a little circuit I do of the local villages and town, just to give it enough of a run to warm it all up, get everything going properly and flowing round, and make it worthwhile, really. Wonder if I might get a few funny looks, because obviously I'm out and about in the lockdown in a motorhome, and I know a lot of people have had problems on that front, but no one's given me a second glance really. Probably much as you'd expect, perhaps being a little bit paranoid. Anyway, we're not going far, we'll be back home soon. Of course, the other thing that can happen if you leave it in one place for too long is you get flat spots on the tyres. Now, I don't really know how quickly that would happen, but we have had problems with that when we first bought the motorhome. Obviously it had stood for some time before we bought it because there were flat spots on the front tyres, which yeah, you could definitely feel, and made it quite unpleasant to drive, and we had to change those pretty quick. I think it'd probably be worse if you left it with the tyres soft. I guess that would give you flat spots quicker. Don't know, let me know in the comments if you know how long you can leave a van like this standing on its tyres normally without having the flat spot problem. And let me know as well if you take yours out for a run every now and again just to avoid problems over winter. Of course, we don't really stop using ours over winter under normal circumstances, but this year it's proven a little bit difficult. I did have a trip booked in a week or so's time, but that's obviously had to be cancelled because of the lockdown. So still got no intention really of laying this up for the winter. I know people have done, and you know, put it sawn to get their road tax back and such. But now we'll be back out as soon as it's permitted really. I'm hoping that we'll get away in December, and we do have a trip booked for just after Christmas as well, if all things go well. I've got to be a little bit careful up here because I did see on our village Facebook page that there's been a diesel spill on one of the sharp corners leading back into the village, and a couple of people have had a bit of a narrow scrape there this morning, so I'll definitely watch out for that. Don't want to end up in the ditch. Well, there we go, we're back to base, and I'm going to let this cool down for a while, and I'll probably check the antifreeze level again, just to, or concentration again, just to see how different it is with that extra little bit added. Probably not greatly different, I don't think, but it's set my mind at rest anyway. Right, let's have a look and see what the concentration's like now. Yeah, still about the same really. We've still got the 2 discs floating, but that's pretty much as expected. You can see it is quite a rusty colour, this coolant. It has been flushed through at least once, and it's had a sort of a half flush a couple of times. But I think it might pay me at some point in the future to do another full flush of it. Maybe next spring or something. Well, that's all for now. If you enjoyed it, press like, subscribe if you want to see some more, and ring the bell to be notified when we upload something new.